It started with her gloves. Black leather, the kind with delicate stitching and a subtle curve along the wrist. She peeled them off slowly, one finger at a time, as if she had nowhere to be and nothing to rush toward. It was 8:17 a.m. A Thursday. The rain outside hadn't let up in 3 days, tapping gently on the cafe windows like it had something to say. I noticed her before I was supposed to. I'd been stacking ceramic mugs behind the bar, pretending not to watch. But every barista learns to read their regulars. You clock their moods, their shoes, the way they walk in, light or heavy steps, distracted or deliberate. Most folks come in on autopilot. Phone in hand. Eyes glazed. One foot in reality, the other already halfway through their workday. She was different. She stood still. Actually still. Not fidgeting. Not scrolling. She just existed. Beige coat. Rain-speckled hair brushed over one shoulder. Her eyes scanned the handwritten chalkboard above the counter like she was reading poetry. When I asked for her order, she looked up and smiled, not just polite customer smile. Something warmer. Familiar, even though we'd never met. Cappuccino, she said softly, almond milk. No sugar. A voice like vinyl, warm, a little scratched, but honest. I nodded. Coming right up. That should have been it. But something in her gaze stayed with me. A quiet steadiness. The kind of look people give when they've survived something big and have stopped wasting time on the small stuff. I frothed the milk slower than usual. Careful. Focused. Not because I was nervous, but because for the first time in a long time, it felt like what I was making mattered. She sat by the window. Same table every day after that. Didn't bring a laptop. Didn't even open a book. Just held the cup with both hands like it anchored her to the moment. And watched. The street, the rain, the ordinary life passing by. I wondered what she saw when she looked. Her name was still a mystery. So was her story. But I found myself thinking about her when I was off shift. Wondering if she'd show up the next morning. Hoping I'd be the one behind the counter when she did. By the end of the first week, I was adjusting my schedule without realizing it. Maybe it was the way she didn't wear perfume, but always smelled like something clean and earthy. Maybe it was how she tipped generously but never mentioned it. Or how she never interrupted silence with needless chatter. She didn't flirt. She didn't linger. She just existed, and somehow made everything else feel like noise. It took 9 days for me to speak again beyond the usual order. You ever get tired of the rain? I asked, handing her the cup. She smiled faintly. No. I like things that stay a while. I felt that line in my chest like a quiet echo. She wasn't just talking about the weather. I knew that instantly. That morning, I fumbled and burned my thumb on the steamer wand. She noticed. Gave a tiny smirk. Slid a folded napkin across the counter with a "to be careful" scribbled in blue ink. Not a phone number. Not a name. Just that. And the weirdest part? It meant more than if she had handed me either. It was the 10th morning before I asked her name. She had just picked up her cappuccino, foam shaped into something I hoped looked like a heart, and turned to walk toward her table when I said, "Wait." She stopped, slowly. Turned back. I wasn't sure what I expected. A smirk? Annoyance? But she just raised an eyebrow, curious, not cold. "I don't think I ever caught your name," I said, pretending to wipe down the counter like it mattered. There was a pause. Not hesitant, intentional. Then she said, "Francis." No last name. No elaboration. Just that. Like I'd asked her favorite color or the time. And yet, something in the way she said it made me feel like I'd just been given a key to a locked room. "John," I replied, tapping my chest like it wasn't obvious. "I mean, I wear the name tag, but still." That made her smile again, one corner of her mouth, subtle but genuine. I know, she said. Then walked away. Francis. I repeated it to myself all day. Rolled it around like it was a secret word. It didn't fit the image of her exactly, it was softer, older, less mysterious. And yet, it suited her. Like her coat. Or the way she never checked her phone. Like maybe she didn't belong in this time entirely. Walter, my coworker, caught me staring after her that afternoon. She's beautiful, he said while restocking muffins, not bothering to be subtle. She's something, I replied. He chuckled. You gonna talk to her for real or just keep sculpting foam hearts? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know what for real meant yet. All I knew was that every morning I wasn't working, I felt vaguely disappointed. Like I was missing something I hadn't known I needed until it showed up wearing a beige coat and black gloves. But I also knew this, she was older. At least a decade, maybe more. Not just in years, but in weight. She moved like someone who'd seen things, weathered them, and came out the other side with grace instead of bitterness. And me? I was 23. Still renting a small house with mismatched plates and a futon that creaked. My biggest life decision so far had been whether to get a second espresso machine off Craigslist. She was elegance. I was a work in progress. Still, that didn't stop the rhythm we fell into. She came in every morning. I had her cup waiting. She always tipped, always smiled, always sat by the window. And though the words were few, the glances got longer. Then one morning, 2 weeks since I first saw her, she held the cup a second longer before taking it. You make really good coffee, she said, not like a compliment but a confession. I like it. I laughed under my breath. It's just steamed milk and espresso. No, she said, locking eyes with me. It's not. Time didn't stop, but it slowed. The usual clatter of mugs, hum of conversation, all of it faded for just a second. And I knew then, she wasn't just talking about the drink. The next part came out before I had time to rehearse it. Would you ever want to go out sometime? It was clumsy, too direct, maybe even a little reckless. But it was honest. Francis blinked. Not startled. Just surprised. She tilted her head, studied me for a second longer, then smiled. You're full of surprises, John. That's all she said before turning to walk away, cup in hand, scarf fluttering slightly as the door swung shut behind her. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. But the next morning, she came in 5 minutes early. And for the first time, she wasn't wearing gloves. It was Saturday night, and I was early. Too early. My Civic was parked across the street from the cafe, engine off, fingers drumming the steering wheel like it was keeping time with my pulse. I kept checking the clock even though I knew I didn't need to. 6:30 p.m. sharp. That's when I told her I'd pick her up. The idea had been simple, a local lantern light festival in the Arboretum. Quiet. Low pressure. Not a date, exactly. Not unless she wanted it to be. When she stepped out, I nearly forgot how to speak. No coat this time. A black sweater, fitted but not flashy. High-waisted trousers and a long gray scarf that fluttered behind her like she walked in slow motion. She looked like a still frame from a film you'd pause and just stare at. Hi, I said, stepping out, suddenly self-conscious of the way my jeans wrinkled at the knees. You clean up nicely, she replied, sliding into the passenger seat with a small smile. So do you, I managed, before realizing how basic that sounded. I mean, more than nicely. Like, time stopped kind of nicely. She let out a laugh, short, real, unguarded. That laugh did something to me. The drive was filled with easy conversation. Music. Childhood snack preferences. Her secret love for sour candy. She said she wasn't originally from here, and when I asked why she moved, she hesitated. Things changed, she said quietly. Let's just say I needed new air. I didn't press. At the festival, the arboretum looked unreal. Thousands of floating lanterns glowed like fireflies trapped in a dream. Reflections shimmered across still water. Couples held hands. Kids ran barefoot in the grass. We walked side by side. Close but not touching. At one point, I turned to look at her, and she wasn't looking at the lights. She was looking at me. I don't remember the last time I did something like this, she said softly. Good or bad? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then nodded. Good. Very good. We kept walking. At the far end of the garden, away from the crowd, we found a bench beneath a tree draped in lights. She sat, crossed one leg over the other, and cradled her paper cup. I have to tell you something, she said, voice quieter now. The air around us changed. Still warm, but heavy. You remember that morning, she continued, when you said I looked amazing at 42? I blinked, heart thudding. Yeah. It sort of slipped out. She smiled, but it was a sad smile this time. That meant something. Not because it was flattering. Because it was the first time in a long time I felt seen, as a woman. Not as someone who lost everything. I froze. She stared straight ahead at the water. A few years ago, she said slowly, I had a husband. 2 kids. A boy and a girl. We were coming home from a weekend trip. It was raining. A drunk driver blew a red light and hit my side of the car. I didn't move. I couldn't. I broke ribs. A leg. Collarbone. Spent weeks in the hospital. But I was the only one who lived. The silence was unbearable. Sacred. I didn't dare speak into it. For a long time, I didn't leave the house. I didn't speak. I didn't feel like a person, just a leftover. She wiped her eye, though there were no tears. So, when I say your compliment meant something, I mean it reminded me that I'm still here. Not just surviving. But maybe, still capable of being something more. My throat tightened. I wanted to say something profound. But all I managed was, I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. I just needed you to know. If I seem cautious, that's why. I nodded, chest burning with something I couldn't name. Not pity. Not desire. Just a deep, aching respect. When we left, we didn't hold hands. But she walked closer to me than she had before. The lake stayed in my mind for days. Not just the lanterns or the sound of her voice under the trees, but the look in her eyes when she told me about the accident. How she didn't flinch. How she gave me that part of herself without expecting anything in return. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not the version I imagined before, mysterious, elegant, untouchable, but the real woman I met beneath a tree, staring at water and trying to rebuild her sense of self, piece by aching piece. We didn't call it a date, but after that night, something shifted. Her smiles in the morning were softer, longer. She started asking questions, what I was reading, what I listened to when the shop got too quiet. Once, she leaned over the counter and whispered, I bought oat milk just to see if you'd judge me. I didn't, of course. But she laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that felt like progress. Still, days passed. Then a week. We hadn't made plans again. I didn't want to push her. I told myself it was fine, that I was being patient, respectful, grounded. But there was something gnawing under my skin. The space between us had grown comfortable, familiar, but also undefined. One night after a late shift, I found myself driving without purpose. Ended up parked outside a diner on the edge of town, the kind that served milkshakes until midnight and had menus that hadn't been updated in 20 years. Francis had suggested it once, said they had the best fries and zero pretension. I figured, why not? I texted her. Hungry? She replied 2 minutes later. Always. We met there just past 9. She wore a denim jacket over a soft gray t-shirt, no makeup, hair loose over her shoulders. She looked younger, but somehow even more herself. We sat across from each other in a red vinyl booth under fluorescent lights that made everything feel like a scene from someone else's memory. Talked about nothing and everything, how she couldn't stand cilantro, how I secretly liked bad 2000s pop songs. It was easy. Too easy. And maybe that's what made me brave. We were parked in my car afterward, steam fogging the windows, the sky outside hazy with clouds. Neither of us said much. Just silence, comfortable but dense. I didn't look at her when I asked, "Do you think we're just friends?" She didn't answer immediately. Didn't shift in her seat. Didn't even look away. Instead, she said, "You're the only person in years who's made me feel light again. Like I'm not pretending." I exhaled, slow. But she wasn't finished. "But I also know I'm not ready for more." "Not yet." I nodded, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. "That's okay," I lied. She turned toward me then, her face inches from mine in the dim red glow of the dashboard. "John. I care about you. Deeply. But the part of me that used to love freely, she's not back yet. I don't want to pretend she is. I don't want to hurt you by faking it." I nodded again, slower. "I get it." The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It wasn't awkward. It was just honest. "I'm not saying never," she whispered. "Just, not now." Outside, a car drove by, headlights stretching shadows across her face like passing thoughts. She reached for my arm, her fingers warm, steady. "Don't disappear on me." "I won't," I said, and meant it. We didn't kiss. Didn't hug. But when I dropped her off and watched her walk inside, something inside me cracked open anyway. Because wanting someone you can't have isn't the worst kind of heartbreak. It's realizing they want you too, just not in the way you're ready for. Not yet. Thursday morning. The cafe was louder than usual, rain hammering the windows, someone's toddler throwing cereal puffs onto the floor, the espresso machine groaning like it hated its job. I saw her before the door even shut. Frances. Same table. Same beige coat. Same almond milk cappuccino waiting for her before she asked. But this time, she didn't walk to the window. She walked straight to the counter after my shift ended, sat across from me at the far end where we kept the worn-out delivery clipboard and a chipped mug full of dry pens. I knew. I didn't know what, but I knew. She didn't smile. Not because she was sad, she looked calm. Grounded. Like someone who'd just made a decision after weeks of standing on a cliff. "I've been thinking about leaving," she said, her voice soft but firm. The words hung between us like smoke. Not explosive, not loud, just dense. Heavy with meaning. "Leaving?" I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded, fingers curling around the ceramic edge of her cup. "My cousin lives in Utah. Small town. Mountains, quiet. She offered me a place to stay if I ever wanted to start over." I swallowed hard. It sounded so complete. Like a story with the last page written already. "When?" I asked. "Next week." I stared at the counter. My hand moved without thinking, tracing a line in spilled sugar that wasn't really there. "I didn't want to just disappear on you," she said. "You deserve more than that." I forced a smile, the kind you wear like armor. "Thanks for telling me." She looked at me with those eyes that always seemed to see through things. She knew I was bleeding underneath, and I think she hurt too, but neither of us flinched. "You've been a beautiful part of a really difficult chapter," she said. "And I'll never forget that." Her voice cracked on beautiful, just a little. Not enough to break. Just enough to prove it was real. I nodded, blinking faster than I should have. "Neither will I." We didn't speak for a moment. Outside, a dog barked. Someone's phone buzzed. The world didn't care that something enormous was ending. And then she stood. We both did. And for the first time, we hugged. Not a polite hug. Not a casual, see you soon hug. This was the kind of hug people write letters about. The kind that says thank you and I'm sorry and I'll miss you all at once. She smelled like cinnamon and coffee and rain. When she pulled back, she touched the side of my face, her thumb brushing my cheek like it was a memory she wanted to keep. I hope, she whispered, that you open that cafe one day. And I hope someone walks in, sees you behind the counter, and realizes how lucky they are. My throat closed. I hope you find peace, I said. And whatever else you're still brave enough to want. Her eyes shimmered, not quite tears, just that full kind of emotion that doesn't need to fall to be felt. Then she was gone. The bell above the door rang. The seat by the window stayed empty. And for the first time in a long time, I had no idea what to do next. Because it wasn't the love story that hurt. It was that it almost was. A week after she left, someone else took her table. Young couple. Loud shoes. They ordered matcha lattes and laughed too loudly about something on their phones. I didn't mind. But I didn't look over there much anymore. Frances was gone. She didn't say goodbye in person. No final hug at the airport. No poetic last walk through the cafe doors. Just a text the night before. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. 12 words. That was it. And yet, it said everything. At first, I waited. Not for her to come back, but for the ache to dull. For her perfume to fade from the folds of memory. For the air in the cafe to stop feeling like it remembered her too. It never really did. But I got used to the weight of her absence, the same way people get used to a scar. They stop noticing it every day, but it still changes the way you walk through the world. And she changed me. That's the thing they don't tell you about love that doesn't turn into romance. It still leaves marks. Not the loud kind. The soft ones. The kind you trace with your thoughts when you're alone. I opened the cafe 6 months later. My own place. Small, simple, but filled with warmth. I called it Second Light. She'd once told me that sometimes, if you're lucky, you get more than one chance to come alive again. I didn't tell her. I don't know why. Pride, maybe. Or fear. Or just the quiet understanding that some chapters don't need follow-ups. They stand on their own. Still, I thought about her when I painted the walls, when I chose the music that would play in the mornings, when I tested 12 different oat milks just to make sure I had the right one. And one evening, after the rush had died and the sky outside had begun to stain purple with dusk, I found it. A letter. Tucked beneath the counter, slipped into a small envelope, no return address. Just my name, John, written in neat, familiar handwriting. Inside, I found the lake again. Different one. Utah's colder. But it's quiet. I'm still learning how to feel like a person again. But I smile more now. There's a boy at the local market who reminds me of you. He talks too much and always overfills the coffee cups. You'd like him. I don't know what we were. But whatever it was, it mattered. You didn't fix me. That's not what this is. But you made it possible for me to start walking toward the light again. You reminded me that I still existed. That matters more than you'll ever know. Thank you. Frances. I sat there for a long time, holding the letter, heart quiet but full. She didn't owe me anything. Not a visit, not a promise, not even those words. But she gave them anyway. And as I closed the envelope and set it gently in the drawer beneath the register, I felt something settle in me, not closure, not certainty, but peace. I would always remember her. Not because she was the one who got away. But because she was the one who arrived when I didn't know I needed saving. And when she left, she took nothing, except the shadows.